Alright, while I was getting really excited for Dragon Ball Fighters, I made a video. It was kind of popular where I guessed. I just said a bunch of different characters that could possibly be DLC. Start with my most likely, and I went down a huge list of characters. I think I had around 20 possible characters for DLC, and a lot of them I were characters I figured were pretty unlikely, but I tried to explain the best I could of how they would work, and I think I got most of that wrong. I think I got three right, three I called right on the money. But the other characters they chose, well, we have to see for sure if those are going to be in the actual game, but it looks like it. Either way, this video is about Smash, and I still don't know if Smash is going to be a 5, like Smash Brothers 5, or if it's going to be Smash Bros. 4.5. People saying it's going to be a port. It's not going to be just the Wii U game. Smash Bros. 4 is already two games. The 3DS game and the Wii U game, neither one of those games are ports of the other. So it would be really silly if they made a port for the Wii U version on the Switch. That doesn't make any sense to me. So what it'll either be is a 4.5 new game with new characters that is largely built off of everything from 4 and uses 4 as the base and then just, adds to it, or it will be a brand new Smash Bros. Game, which there's a lot of hints and subtles pointing at that it might actually be a Smash 5. I will try to make a video soon about which characters I think will most likely come back and which will likely be cut, but I don't want to get into that yet, not until I already try to discuss possible DLC, or not DLC, but possible just characters in the game. Whether this game will have DLC or not, we'll have to see, but just possible characters to be in this game that are new characters, as in characters that weren't in 4. I will briefly go over returning characters, but I want to say, to me, the most likely character outside of Inkling, because Inkling was definitely my first call if they're going to make a new Smash. And I even said this, I've said this before, that Inkling is a character that a lot of people wanted her to, and slash him, to be in Smash Bros. 4 as DLC, and instead we got Corrin, and some people were upset about that. But the thing is that usually in Smash Bros. They try to represent everything Nintendo up to that point, and I don't think, even though Splatoon 1 did find some popularity, it really didn't get the same level of popularity that it has now until Splatoon 2. Splatoon 2 is when Splatoon really took off, and while Splatoon 1 was definitely a fan favorite amongst Nintendo fans, Splatoon 2 was where everyone really sucked their teeth into the game. And I think now is the best time where Splatoon has shown it can stand up on its own. It's definitely a popular series, and people like the Inklings. People who don't play Splatoon know the Inklings. They like the weapons. They like everything about Splatoon, the mechanics with the ink. So it makes perfect sense for Inkling to be in the game, but trying to think of other characters is where this becomes a little confusing, because a great deal of time hasn't really passed since the last game. In fact, Smash Bros. 4 came out late 2014, but the last update for the game was early 2016. Now, that is the smallest gap of time in between two Smash Bros. Games to date. And well, I'm not saying, of course, this is not me saying that's impossible for them to not make a brand new game. It's totally possible, but I would assume they would have reused a lot of assets from 4, even if it's a new game with new physics engine and new move sets and whatever. It's still going to have probably a lot of borrowed assets from Smash 4, which is completely fine. So, what character? I don't even know if I would say, I have this written down in my notes as the number one new character that I think is a shoe-in. And I actually don't know if I really think it's the possible character that makes the most sense to be perfect, but because I don't exactly know which Nintendo characters I think are extremely likely to be in here, I'm going to have to say, right under Inkling, the character I could see making the most sense to join Smash would be Springman from ARMS. Now, whether or not they want to add more than one ARMS character, because they could potentially add in 2 or 3. It would be really cool to just see Springman in action at least, and of course, possibly he could have an alternate costume that turns him into Ribbon Girl, because they could potentially fight equal to each other. But if it's merely only Springman, I don't think people will be that upset. My only concern with Springman is that he might be a little too similar to Little Mac. And that might mean potentially cutting Little Mac or cutting or just not putting in Springman, but I think it's safe to assume Springman will join. If anyone from ARMS joins, it'll be him. He's the most basic kind of fighter from that game, so that in a way that makes him the most appropriate to represent ARMS as a whole. So whether we see Ribbon Girl as well, or possibly a secondary, more characters like Min Min, she's a very popular character, or maybe even like the boss character. I think at least Springman would be in the game. If he's not a character, he'll be an assist, but if he is a character, we will probably see an assist that's another character from the game, which would probably be cooler if there's like a really weird assist character from ARMS. That would be a lot of fun. Second, for character I really think has a big chance here. Now, what we already saw in the trailer video is that Link is getting a redesign. Sadly, if you had to ask me, do I think that's going to be a brand new character, or is it going to be a revamped version of Link with new moves inspired from Breath of the Wild, or is it going to literally be Link and he can just wear the costume from Breath of the Wild? All I know is it's one of those 3 options. I have no idea. That trailer did not show nearly enough information to gather if it is one or the way or the other way. So all I know is that their Link will look like he's from Breath of the Wild at the very least. But as far as what do I think is the most likely, it is such a toss-up. It is such a toss-up. I don't think any one of those 3 makes more sense than the other. I think all of them are quite possible. If Link just looks like that and his moveset is completely intact, that would still work for Breath of the Wild because he uses a boomerang and a bow and bombs in Breath of the Wild, and he still has a spin slash. And the sword mechanics are still mostly the same. The only problem is that Breath of the Wild offers a lot of more ways to play the game. There's big two-handed greatswords, spears, axes, hammers, wands, and not only that, but instead of having a hook shot, there's he has all the special powers using the Sheikah Slate, like the ice wall, and the stasis, magnetic powers. So, I mean, to me, it's like those might be hard to make a moveset around, but it probably would be worth at least 1 or 2 moves here and there. He also has Guardian abilities, like the shield from the Goron, and he has the ability to get a gust of wind in the air when he jumps. So I think that there is enough there to completely make a brand new character, or enough there to give him maybe 1 new move. But also, if they just stuck with the original way Link fights, it would make a ton of sense. So, what do I think? What I would love, because I just want to see more characters, I would love to see 2 Links. 1 Link based off Breath of the Wild with a lot more moves from Breath of the Wild, and then the classic Link that wears the green tunic as well. And then you could do something, you could make Toon Link even more radically different, because yes, at this point there are 3 Links. So that is a problem, that's kind of what makes me think they might only do 2 Links and just make Link look like he's from Breath of the Wild. But because I'm really scrounging for character ideas here, I don't know, man. So and I would love, yeah, like I said, for me, I think it would be best if there's just 1 Link based off Breath of the Wild and 1 Link that's the green classic tunic Link. I think Link is iconic enough to deserve that. But they might also implement a brand new system entirely, where maybe we'll see multiple versions of each Smash Bros. Character, kind of like Street Fighter Ultra 4. In that game, you could pick which variation Street Fighter characters you want. In fact, Street Fighter 2, one of the Street Fighter 2 games did this too, where you could pick between different versions of Ryu, different versions of Ken, different versions of Sagat. You could do that. And we could maybe do something like this, because every iteration they change. So what if they made it to where there was a brand new Link based off Breath of the Wild, but you could also be Link from the last game, Smash 4? And then what if they do that with Mario as well? What if they make a new Mario that has Cappy in his moveset? And then you could also play as Smash 4 Mario, but you could also play as Melee Mario. Or you could throw Dr. Mario in right there. So those are all good options if they want to implement a new system that changes styles completely, which could be an interesting idea, but we'll have to see. Because yes, it's a new Smash game theoretically, so new features like that would be a thing. That could change the game. Next, I'm going to have to say, just because again I'm not so sure who they could draw from, I'm going to go ahead and discuss returning characters, because I think those are some of the most likely to possibly see. Not because I know this is kind of like a break in talking about newcomers, but I do think that when it comes to Ice Climbers and Wolf, there is a real possibility for both of them to come back. Mainly because if this is a 4.5 game, adding in Wolf would be just icing on the cake for a lot of fans who wanted Wolf in Smash 4. I wanted Wolf in Smash 4. I prefer Wolf to Fox and Falco. In Smash 4, I got pretty good as Fox. But Fox is definitely not nearly what he used to be back in his Melee days. And Wolf was definitely the most interesting of the three in Brawl. Mainly because his gameplay style was so different, and because the speed was so much slower. Not entirely, he wasn't a slow character, but because the speed was slower, he was a lot more fun to play for someone who wasn't a speed master like when you play as Fox. So Wolf would be a great addition here. I think his moveset is diverse enough from Fox. In fact, in Smash 4, I really actually wanted it to be Fox and Wolf with Falco cut, but I knew Falco would stay. So I just prayed for all three of them, and then with Wolf being cut, and he's still cut, I'm very sad. I would really like to see Star Wolf make a return. And a lot of other people want to see Ice Climbers make a return. They're considered to be very in the top tiers of Smash Brawl. Not that Brawl counts or matters that much in tournament play, but when it comes to Ice Climbers, they were introduced in Melee, and they've become beloved by a lot of people. I really think they could be completely reworked to where it doesn't have to be both of them, but I feel like something about Sakurai, when it came to Smash 4, I realized that even though Bowser got a complete overhaul and he was looking amazing, Bowser wasn't changed 100%. He was changed of like 50% possibly. But he still retained a lot of what made Bowser Bowser back from Melee and Brawl. And I realized that a lot of characters weren't going to get the radical overhaul that I was really hoping for. And it turns out a lot of characters are going to be similar because that's what the people want. They played the past games, so they want Ganondorf to still fight like a slow variation of Captain Falcon. They still want these characters to fight the same. So that's why, even though I thought it would make a ton of sense to just make the Ice Climbers either the brother or the sister, and then change their moves all around, they might come back just in full power as both of them together. So it's a very real possibility because we don't have to worry about the 3DS version anymore. It could definitely happen, you guys. Not only that, but yeah. So it's also very likely because there is a big demand for both of them. And besides that, I think the only other returning character that's not Snake is Pichu. I don't think anyone wants Pichu. I think people know Pichu is in Melee, but why do you care? Why do you want him? There's already Pikachu, and Pikachu's better anyway. So just play as Pikachu. It doesn't make sense. Now I'm going to discuss Mario Party characters, and what I mean by that is characters that basically show up only in Mario Kart, Mario Tennis, and Mario Party. Now, the thing is about these characters is that a lot of them already appear in the game already. because Mario is so popular, and these characters all deserve a spot. Even Rosalina, and not only that, but Donkey Kong and Yoshi are also both in the game. And that's because Yoshi has his own franchise, as well as Donkey Kong with the Donkey Country games. Donkey Kong Country games. So, what I'm thinking here is a lot of people see all these characters. They see Mario, Luigi, Yoshi, Wario, Peach, Rosalina, Baby Bowser, well, Bowser Jr. to be precise, Bowser, you know, all of these characters, and they think that other characters from Mario have just as much of a shot. I have a lot of friends who complain that Waluigi and Daisy are not in Smash, and to them I just say, why do you want them in Smash? To me, I feel like the only reason why people like Waluigi is because of his aesthetic design. I think the only reason why people like Daisy is because they find Daisy to be a little bit more unique and interesting compared to Peach. But the reality is that Daisy doesn't do anything that Peach doesn't do, and Peach has even more abilities thanks to her ability to glide and because of her inclusion in Mario Bros. 2. Peach is basically a representation of Mario Bros. 2 in Smash, which is a good thing because she was introduced in Mario Bros. 2 as a playable character, but not only that, that's one of her only playable appearances. So because of this, Mario and Luigi don't have to be that much based off of their appearances in Mario Bros. 2, whereas Peach continues that lore. And then later on in Super Mario 3D World on Wii U, Peach was a playable character and has her glide ability. And now in Mario Run on phones, Peach also has her little glide ability. So this is Peach is great for that. But Daisy, Waluigi, what do they bring to the table? I don't think they really bring much to the table. However, I do think that Waluigi's assist character is great. And one of the things I really love about the Waluigi assist character is that he does things that actually are unique to Waluigi. He always is holding a tennis racket and he stomps people into the ground. I would like it if they did make a Waluigi character to use these aspects of Waluigi, to make him very heavily inspired as a character who comes from the Mario games where you play tennis and you play Mario Kart and maybe even throw in some golf elements. They could do stuff like that, just make him basically the sports character, but also this could be a fun opportunity to make his final smash something involving Mario Party, like maybe he spins a dice, and whatever you hit in the dice, something different will happen for each number. So that could be, and maybe the what happens on those numbers could be inspired from different items from Mario Party, for example. So I think that's to me is the best way they could implement Waluigi. But as far as him being in the game himself, I don't know. I feel like he best fits as an assist character, and I think he should probably stay that way. And when it comes to other Mario characters, well, if Bowser Jr. can be in the game, then really I don't know who else can't be in the game. Bowser Jr. sort of opened up the floodgates in a sense. So I think it's very possible to see Bowser Jr. Return for one, but I think it's very possible because of Bowser Jr. that we could see more Mario characters. But I just don't think it's that necessary, and I would love it if this Smash 5 is the first Smash to not introduce like 2 Mario characters. That would be great. Wait, did Brawl have new Mario characters? Well, it had Wario. I don't know if that counts exactly. I wouldn't count Wario or Diddy Kong, but some other people would. Then I'm going to throw out the idea of Toad. Toad. I don't think Toad's going to be playable. Mainly because, yes, Peach uses him in a move. They could always change that move, just like how they changed Zelda and Sheik's moves to where they wouldn't reference each other anymore. They could always give give Peach a brand new move, where maybe she pulls out a flower instead, or possibly she just has a brand spanking new technique that has nothing to do with a counter move. But I think it makes a ton of sense for her to pull out Toad. I think that's very integral to her as a character because she is the princess over Toad. But Toad has definitely gained more relevance thanks to the new Super Mario games as well as Mario 3D World, where in Mario 3D World, there's a playable Toad character who's blue. And this is cool because it's sort of a reference to the old school Mario 2 game, because if you played that on NES, Toad has a lot of blue in his color palette. So I kind of like this idea of a blue Toad, and he's really fast. He's like faster than Mario. It's a really fun idea. And this Blue Toad, like I said, he's the one in Mario 3D World. Some people want Captain Toad, especially over just Toad. But to me, Captain Toad doesn't do anything besides walk forward, so I don't understand why they would want that. If they did do Toad, there could be a few moves here and there, but most of the moveset would be made up, and I don't see how he would be cooler or better or more fun to play as than any of the other Mario characters. And that kind of makes him a bummer as a character, to be like, at least my idea of Waluigi could make some sense and could be a pretty fun and cool character. But this idea for Toad, it just doesn't make any sense. I will toss out, before I move on to beyond Mario characters, I will toss out the possibility of Geno, because Geno is a character a lot of people wanted after Brawl, because all the characters that were in Smash, there was a lot of secondary and side characters, and some of them were old school characters that were kind of like, oh, they were kind of like references for longtime fans of Nintendo, and a lot of us were thinking Geno was one of those characters, but what I think a lot of people didn't realize is that Geno is technically owned by Square Enix and not Nintendo, because they made Super Mario RPG, so the original characters belong to them. That sucks, but considering that Geno and Cloud are both in Smash 4 in a sense, with Cloud actually being a playable character, Geno was added as a Mii costume. There's a Mii costume for the gunner that can make you look like Geno. And the fun part of this was that it happened a little bit after the Final Fantasy character of Cloud was introduced. So what I'm thinking is, now that we have got that out of the way, we've already established that Nintendo and Square Enix are able to work together. Super Mario RPG is on the Super Nintendo Classic after all. So I feel like it makes a ton of sense to add in Geno into the game. I would really love to see Geno in this game. I think he fits in Smash perfectly. I think there's easy ways to make him work. If Mega Man is cut, then I would really need to see Geno. If Geno is not added in, I mean, obviously I wouldn't say that he would play the seamless Mega Man, but he's another Gunner style character. So if Geno is added in and Mega Man is gone, I think I will be okay with that. However, as a big long-term Mega Man fan, I still want to see Mega Man in the game, and plus Mega Man does play unique and fun. So, but I feel like there's room for both of them. I feel like Geno could be unique enough to be a ton of fun. And with all of his special MP moves and all the different weapon types in Mario RPG, it would just make a perfect amount of sense. So, yeah, I want to see it. But, time and time again, we all want Geno, and it never happens, so I'm not sure. Next, I will talk about the possibility of Xenoblade 2 characters. Mainly, I'm talking here about Pyra and her alter ego. I think it's pronounced Mithra, or I'm not exactly sure because I didn't play Xenoblade 2 myself. But I have been seeing some demand for those two characters. A lot of people really want to see it. I think there's totally a possibility there. I think that it's not completely out of question, because if you would have told me that they were going to put Shulk in Smash 4, I would have laughed in your face. In fact, Shulk was such a heavily rumored character for so long. I really didn't expect to see him. I thought it was bullshit every time someone brought Shulk up. But Shulk was in the game. So again, in a lot of ways, Smash 4 had probably one of the best and most perfect character rosters I've seen to date, where it was no holds bar, and it included almost every single Nintendo character I could ever think of, but then it also included almost every single third-party guest character I could possibly think of that completely deserved it. So, like, obviously, there's a few other third party guest characters I could think of, but I don't know if they deserved it as much as those other characters. But then it also kind of opened the floodgates in some ways with characters like Bayonetta, who isn't the most god tier iconic character, as well as characters like Shulk, who, it's like, okay, he's definitely that. Shulk's inclusion of Smash made Xenoblade more on the map. But that's kind of how Smash Bros. Is. Every Smash Bros. Game I think has characters like that. The original Smash Bros. Game I think did it for half the cast, depending on who you were. I knew who every character was when I played the original Smash Bros. When I was in like first or second grade. I played the original Smash Bros. Back then. I knew who every character was, except for Samus and Ness. I had no idea who those two were. You know, but I knew everyone else because my older brother had Star Fox when I was a little kid. I played Kirby at my cousin's house. I've played F-Zero, but I didn't know who Samus was. I never even seen Super Metroid before. I had no idea. I never seen Earthbound before. I didn't know who those two characters were. But a lot of people probably did know who those characters were. But maybe they didn't know who Star Fox was, or maybe they didn't know who Kirby was. So then there's Melee, which introduced Game & Watch, which I think a lot of people didn't know that was a part of Nintendo's history until after it was already in Smash Bros. Melee. They also introduced Marth and Roy, which, yeah, maybe you knew them if you were Japanese, but if you were fucking American, you did not know who the hell those two were. And also Ice Climbers. Again, these are just little parts of Nintendo's history. So, lots of characters from those old past games could fit. The only difference is now Nintendo has so much brand recognition and they even advertise a lot of their old school games all the time. So it's come to a point where almost any game that Nintendo wants you to know about, you probably already know about it. So could another character from Xenoblade appear? And could it possibly be Pyra and Mithra, who I'm pretty sure are the same character, but they're just different alter egos. So I think they use the same body, but their looks change completely. But I'm not sure if they have different movesets or not. Like I said, I haven't played the game, but considering it's from a JRPG, there's perfect amounts of moves possibilities already. I do know a little bit about the game. I know that those characters are support characters, and they give your main character different energies and powers. So they could be interesting as characters in Smash. It might be basically a better executed version of Palutena, something that the Palutena fans probably wanted the whole time. They could really fill in that gap. And plus, you could still keep Shulk. I don't see any reason to remove Shulk, which is also why I don't see any reason to include the new MC from Xenoblade 2. But if you keep Shulk and then add those girls in, either one of them or both of them, or just the one of them, and they find some way to make them both the same character, or possibly there's alt costume where one is one girl and one's the other girl. It's not something, if it's not in the game, it's not going to bother me at all. And I think a lot of people who play Xenoblade also probably won't even care. But who else are they going to put in anyway? You might as well put them in. And I don't think it would be a disservice to the Xenoblade franchise at all. I think, or neither would it be a disservice to the Smash franchise. So I think it could work. I think it makes sense. After that, I have some ideas from Pokemon. Now, some people seem to think Greninja is a shoo-in to be cut, and I have some. That is so confusing to me. They're not gonna cut characters unless they are like broken, and I think Smash 4 had some of the best balancing to date. Greninja is a very interesting, fun character who has his own moveset. I love playing as him, and a lot of people love playing as him. So, cutting Greninja, why? Just because he was in Pokemon X and we've already moved on past X? Hello, Lucario's in the game. Greninja is going to stay. He's just going to be a popular character from now on. Like, that's just how it is. He's going to be a Pokemon character that managed to be in Smash. However, there is an interesting aspect here within Smash Bros. Now that there are um, multiple characters from Pokemon. They're all of different types. There's one electric type, one water type, Greninja, one fire type being Charizard, and a fighting type like Lucario, and a psychic type like Mewtwo. Plus, there's a normal slash fairy type with Jigglypuff. So what they could do here is fill in the gap for a grass type. And I think a lot of us kind of were hoping for something like that in Smash 4. And obviously there's multiple characters here that would fit and make sense from Pokemon. For me personally, there's also the fact that a fire type and the water type, they're both starter Pokemon. One is from the first generation, and one is from, I can't remember which generation it was, but it's from X and Y. So, not the newest generation, but it was the newest generation at the release of Smash Bros. So, we could go with the newest iteration of the Grass Starter's third form, and when you take a look at his design, he actually could make a lot of sense. He actually is possible. This character is... what this name is bullshit. I will try to pronounce it. Decidially. His name is bullshit. But he is... I think his name's a play on words for Deadeye, I'm pretty sure. Because he's a Pokemon who is basically a owl with a bow and arrow, and he's a grass flying type. This could make a very interesting character. He could shoot arrows, fly around, attack from a distance, and be able to maneuver fast. This could be a variation of a character like Pit. If you give him a completely different moveset and make him fight with a lot of kicks because he's got talons since he's a bird, he could work out and be a really fun character. However, so if you weren't sure by the name because I couldn't say it, I butchered it. He is what I'm referring to, the grass starter from Pokemon Sun and Moon, the newest generation of grass starters. However, there's another grass starter who's not only was someone that people suggested for Smash 4, but he's even in Pokken Tournament. So that I don't know if that's giving him more of a chance, but I think a lot of people know who I'm talking about. The grass starter from Generation 3, from Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, Sceptile. Sceptile has somewhat of a humanoid figure, but he would be easily, you could give him tons of grass-based moves. His character archetype would be perfect for basically any grass-based move. So, yeah, and plus he's a fan favorite, I think, amongst grass fans. Not that Generation 3 is well beloved by a lot of people. In fact, if they put in Blaziken, I would be perfectly happy. I don't care. We already have a fire type. We already have a fighting type. Yeah, but I like Blaziken. He's also in Pokken Tournament because he's badass. That's all there is to it. He's just a really badass fucking character. So Blaziken would be a great choice here. If you had to ask me who my favorite humanoid type Pokemon is, so this is Pokemon that aren't dragons, Pokemon who aren't on all fours, Pokemon who stand up on two legs and fight with their fists in the air, sort of like a human would. Of all those, a Pokemon that I've beaten multiple games with on my team is Scizor. I love Scizor. He's like Scyther, but a little bit cooler. There's not a bug character, and there's not a steel character, so he would fit that role for Smash games in general. Scizor is just badass. He's got two giant fists that are also claws. One of my favorite moves, I think it's called X-Slash. I think it's a bug type move. It is just beautiful. Scizor could be an awesome character for this game. He would be really fast, really have a lot of like flurries, slashes. He'd be kind of like a flying Wolverine style character. That would be really cool for Smash. I think he would possibly be able to go toe to toe with Little Mac. He would be a super fun character. I would shit my pants if I saw Scizor as a playable character. It probably won't happen though. Probably not going to happen. That's just my dream. But Scizor will probably always remain as a background stage character of sorts. But man, I would love Scizor. I think a lot of other people would love him too. But I think that's just not going to happen this time around. Next, I'm going to be talking about secondary characters from various Nintendo games that haven't been included yet. Mainly because in Melee there was a big boost in secondary characters. Luigi was the only secondary character in the original Smash, but it made so much sense to include him. If you're going to make a Smash Bros. Game, especially with team combat, having Mario and Luigi together is perfect. And I think a lot of people thought that when they first played the game was, how can I be Luigi? Now Luigi was in the arcade mode, but I think even if you didn't play arcade mode, you would see Mario and say, "Where's Luigi?" It's just too weird to not have Luigi included. And so then in Melee, they added in the princess characters and the villain characters. However, this was mainly just from Zelda and Mario. And of course, they also added in Fox's rival Falco, and even Marth got a secondary character with Roy. So even though they're not from the same game and they're not from the same storyline, Roy is sort of like a secondary character because they're both from Fire Emblem, and Marth is kind of like the main character representation. At least he's the main character being represented from those games, and Roy being like the secondary character. Then, of course, in Brawl, the much needed inclusion of Diddy Kong and Meta Knight and DDD were all added, and as well as Wario. So more secondary characters, though Wario sort of has his own right to be in the game thanks to games like WarioWare and, in my opinion, Wario Land on the Game Boy. But DDD and Meta Knight were characters I think should have been in Cinch Melee. I even thought that back then when I was a kid. I was like, how come the villains from Kirby aren't in the game? How come Meta Knight's not in the game? You know, if all these other characters are going to be in the game, why not them? So then there comes a problem here where it's what secondary characters are necessary. Now, like I said earlier, the floodgates are already open thanks to characters like Bowser Jr. At that point, yes, they made Bowser Jr. very unique and made him so good and worth playing that he totally earns his right and spot in Smash. But a lot of that is thanks to the Clown Car Copter. So he really is like a second variation of Bowser. He's almost like a side character for Bowser himself because Bowser just has that much clout. A lot of the other side characters, they're definitely not nearly that necessary. Diddy Kong is like Donkey Kong's Luigi. He makes the perfect amount of sense. What is Dixie Kong? Well, Dixie Kong is like Diddy Kong's Luigi. So, does Diddy Kong have that much clout on his own? That's where I'm not so sure. So, should a character like Dixie Kong or Crazy Kong, well, sorry, not Crazy Kong, but Funky Kong or Cranky Kong, do any of those Kongs need to be in the game, or do we already have enough monkeys? In my opinion, Dixie could be very unique. She would probably play nothing like Diddy Kong if she were added, with maybe the only similarity being if they both throw a banana peel on the floor. Which, you don't have to include that at all. You could include something completely different. So, what would I say out of all those monkeys? Honestly, I think Diddy Kong is already the perfect representation of monkeys that aren't Donkey Kong. I don't think we need any more monkey characters or Donkey Kong characters at all. So yeah. But then it comes to the idea of what other characters could we add in from the other franchises? Is it about time for a new F-Zero character? Maybe. But I think if they were going to include a new F-Zero character, it probably would have done so by Smash 4. At this point, I'm really not sure if we need another F-Zero character, but it would be nice. I think the F-Zero fans would be happy, but The fact is, Smash 4 wanted to break away from clones, and basically they would have to make a brand new move setup, just like they did for Captain Falcon originally. So, Captain Falcon can do it because he's like OG Smash, but the idea of making up new move sets for characters is kind of, I don't know, it's not really a good idea. Yeah. Then we have Metroid, and I know a lot of people want some more characters from Metroid, but the problem is that none of them are really that iconic or stick around long enough. And the idea of promoting Metroid with a new Metroid character is just silly because every single game is about Samus. And really, other characters are never on screen. The only other characters on screen are villains, and I will get to that in just a moment. But what other secondary characters are there? We could possibly put in another secondary character from Zelda, but really, it's again, I struggle to decide who. We could put in a Goron character or just another like any of the Guardians or any of the like the Zora or Guardian or Goron from Ocarina of Time or something like that. But at the end of the day, it's like really, why would you? None of them are necessary. Zelda is the only character that makes a ton of sense to add in besides Link. Sheik is a great choice, but that's mainly because of her connection to Zelda. If they wanted to add in another character, I would honestly say uh, Impa. Impa from should be a character, especially after her inclusion of Hyrule Warriors, where they really made her seem badass. The only thing is that Hyrule Warriors is not really a mainline Zelda game or a mainline Nintendo game. Now, I'm not saying that that means she can't be in the game, but her role in the other Zelda games are very, very minor. In Hyrule Warriors, she's like the second character you can play as besides Link. So, and she's also one of the best and most badass characters in the game. So, in the other Zelda games, her role is very minor, and like all of them. And sometimes she's like an old woman. So, as much as I would love to see Impa, and I would have to say if they put Impa in, it would have to be from Hyrule Warriors, and that's why I'm thinking probably not so much. There is a possibility of another Fire Emblem character, which I know a lot of people are just rolling their fucking eyes right now. Obviously, I would say, yeah, if they want to add in a new Fire Emblem character that's like a new class or type that we haven't seen in Smash yet, they should probably cut some of the other Fire Emblem characters who are already in the game. Like, I think Seda could be a great choice. She's a Pegasus Knight, and she's from the same game that Marth is from. I think she would be a great choice. But of course, there's also the option of one of the characters from Awakening. Fire. Oh wait, was it? Yeah, Awakening. That was the one that had Chrom in it, and Lucina and Robin. There's definitely plenty of characters to choose from there. But there's also plenty of characters to choose from in Fates, as there are two separate games with a ton of different characters. So there's plenty of characters to choose from. But I would say if they're going to do that, they should probably cut some of the other Fire Emblem characters. Um, so if this is a 4.5 and not just a 5 where everything's different and the characters will be cut, then I can't see a new Fire Emblem character happening. And even if we do think there might be a new Fire Emblem character, as to who makes more sense than other characters, I'm not entirely sure who should be in the game. I'm not entirely sure who completely fits. I do think they could put in both the King brothers from each family faction from Fire Emblem Fates. I think those could be assist trophies. Not playable characters, but assist trophies. I think a lot of people want and expect Camellia to be in the game in some capacity. Well, she probably will be in the game as a collectible trophy, but as far as an assist trophy, yeah, I would like that too, but I would rather have the two King brothers and that be it. Um, Besides that, as far as playable characters, yeah, from Fire Emblem, I'm not so sure. So a lot of these secondary characters, I can't think of who would make the most sense. So yeah, Next, I will talk about the two villains I think everyone's been wanting. If they're going to put in any more villain characters, these are the fucking two. Besides, like, Wolf. But Wolf was already in a Smash game, technically, thanks to Brawl. So, as far as, like, any more villain characters to put in, they're not going to put in the fucking villain from Skyward Sword. People were thinking they would do that in Smash 4. He was an assist trophy, and that's the way he should have been. Same with Skull Kid. Those characters need to be straight up assist trophies. But then when you have villains from two games, these are the two villains everyone wants. The villain from Donkey Kong and the villain from Metroid. I'm talking about King K. Rool and Ridley. Some people hate the idea of Ridley. Some people hate the idea of King K. Rool. Now, when it comes to Ridley, I've heard the arguments to put Ridley in the game, and I gotta say, they make a ton of sense. The fact that Ridley is supposed to be a lot bigger than Samus doesn't mean shit. Bowser is normally way bigger than Mario, but in Smash he's only a little bit taller. Olimar is supposed to be the size of a fucking ant, okay? He's supposed to be really tiny, yet he's still a little bit shorter than Mega Man. A lot of the character sizes are not to scale to where they're actually supposed to be, so I don't find it to be a good excuse for that to keep Ridley as a non-playable character. The problem is that Ridley really is supposed to be massive, even bigger compared to how Bowser's bigger than Mario. Ridley, while I think that that's not a real excuse, I think Ridley still should be in the game. I do also have to wonder how different would Ridley be compared to Charizard. Seems like Charizard already fulfills that dynamic of a dragon character in the game. And that's what Charizard is. He's a straight up fucking dragon that you can play as. Ridley could easily have unique moves, but there'd be a lot of similarities, no question. And because of that, I just don't think it's that necessary or that much of a good idea. So, should Ridley be in the game? That might be up for you to decide. What about King K. Rool? King K. Rool, I think, would be a questionable fit. It's not that King K. Rool isn't popular enough or good enough, but there is the idea that, because he was created by Rare, Nintendo probably doesn't think that highly of him or care about him. And I think that might be possibly why he's not in Donkey Kong Country Returns, either one of them. He's not really in either one of those games, and those villains have all been kind of replaced by new ones. So, will he return for Smash? Even though he's really important in the other Donkey Kong Country games, he doesn't have much presence in the new ones. So it makes me feel like he probably won't come back. Though, there's definitely some moveset to gather based off of the different appearances, because his appearances in Country 1, 2, 3, and Donkey Kong 64 were quite different. So there's definitely something there. But, like I said, I don't think him or Ridley ever have... I don't think they ever have a chance. But I will say, the floodgates are open already in Smash 4. We only saw a small capacity of the floodgates being open, but they're fucking open. Which makes me think Smash 5 might not be the prestigious character roster that we're used to. We might see some oddball choices. Especially because, again, we're kind of running out of characters to choose from. Next, I will discuss the possibility of secondary third-party characters. This means characters from a franchise that the third-party character is already representing. I'm talking about characters from Mega Man, Sonic, Pac-Man, Final Fantasy, and Bayonetta. Oh, and Street Fighter. Can't forget Street Fighter. Now, I'm going to go ahead and rule out side characters from Bayonetta and Final Fantasy, because if they did do more Final Fantasy characters, that would be kind of weird, because it's getting to this point where it's breaching on Dissidia territory. It's like Dissidia already exists. I don't think people need that many characters from Dissidia. Same with Street Fighter. While I would love to see Chun-Li in the game, it kind of gets in this weird territory where, Marvel vs. Capcom and Street Fighter already do this, where they have Ryu and Chun-Li in the games. So we don't really need that. As much as, again, I would love that. I'm a huge fan of Chun-Li, and I think Chun-Li is an extremely popular video game character. At this point, when it comes to a lot of these third-party games, only one character really needs to be represented. However, when it comes to Sonic and Mega Man, there is a plethora of interesting and diverse side characters that the hardcore fans of Sonic and Mega Man would both really appreciate. And as a big fan of both Sonic and Mega Man, I would really, really like it if we could see Tails or Knuckles or Eggman or Shadow or Metal Sonic. Any of those characters I just listed would fit perfectly. It would also be cool to have the dynamic of having Mario, Luigi, Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, Link and Zelda, all these partner team-ups, and then have Sonic with Tails. To me, that would be perfect. To give Sonic that companion to make him go toe-to-toe on a 2v2 game, that would make a ton of sense. Having Tails in the game would be perfect for so many reasons. However, a lot of people would rather prefer Knuckles. After Sonic Mania, my love for Tails and Knuckles has been completely restored to how it was back when I was a little kid. I want to see these characters in this game so bad. I know it probably won't happen. And that's what makes me sad. But if there is any possible chance, I feel like Tails and Knuckles are the two characters who have the biggest opportunities. Mainly because Shadow's moveset has the big threat of not being that diverse compared to Sonic, but also Shadow's not nearly as popular as he used to be. He used to be a really popular character. Shadow also has a good. It makes sense to put Shadow in the game because he was playable. His first game was playable. He was playable with Sonic Adventure 2, which was originally on the Dreamcast. But Sonic Adventure 2 Battle was the first Sonic game for many, many Nintendo fans. And I'm not just saying that because it was the first Sonic game on a Nintendo console. I have a ton of friends who literally did not play Sonic until that game on the GameCube. And then they learned to love Sonic. So I think that it makes a ton of sense to include a character like Shadow. And if they do put in Dr. Robotnik, I would love it if he fought more like how he fought in Sonic Adventure 2, where he had legs, because otherwise he's kind of doing the same gimmick as Bowser Jr. And we don't need two characters in floaty machines, but he could still have a lot of moves based off of different bosses from the Sonic games. So his forward attack move could be like the drill, whether it be his forward special or just a forward attack. His smash attack, like the C-stick forward A attack, could be him throwing the wrecking ball from the original Sonic boss battle. But there's just so many boss battles to choose from for Eggman that would make him perfect for a fighting game like this. Not to mention, and I kind of had this idea before Bowser Jr. was ever a thing, but I kind of knew that the idea of having two Sonic characters in the game was a very low possibility. I think Sakurai has already said he doesn't like that idea, but not that the floodgates are open on this, because this is one of the only things the floodgates are not open on. But if they're going to put in any side characters from a third-party game, Sonic would be the best scenario to choose from, with the second best scenario probably being Mega Man. Mega Man definitely has one particular character, Zero, from the Mega Man X games that would be perfect here. He's normally in the Marvel vs. Capcom games, and he's originally from Mega Man X. Now, it would be perfect. He's a great representation of the Super Nintendo because so many people played Mega Man X, but would it make the most sense to include only Mega Man and Zero? I think Zero would have the most interesting moveset compared to any other Mega Man character, but he might not make the most sense. Maybe it would be better to add in just Mega Man X and just make him similar to Mega Man, but have his moves more based off of his games, which would give him a lot of a different style of attack. But also, not only does Mega Man X have the Shoryuken ability, he has the Hadouken ability as well. So this could make Mega Man X a very interesting character. Plus, a big part of his dynamic in every Mega Man X game is collecting different armors. So again, Obviously, his Final Smash could be his Ultimate Armor from Mega Man X4, 5, and 6, but really, there could be a cool dynamic involving getting armor upgrades. So Mega Man X could easily work and have different moves from different Mega Man X games, just like how Mega Man has different moves from Mega Man games. But then, of course, there's the idea of Proto Man and Bass. I don't know if Proto Man and Bass would have as much of a unique moveset compared to Mega Man, because they both are kind of very similar, and they're both from the same game. So if you gave Proto Man moves like how you give Mega Man moves, it would be basically the same moves, or it would be the same. It would be moves from the same games, but just different ones. So I don't think Proto Man or Bass have that much of a shot compared to a character from a different Mega Man universe like Mega Man X. However, like I said, I don't know if more third-party characters from the same franchise will be included. We will probably see at least one new guest character. If they really want to try to outdo Smash 4, then they'll do 2 or possibly 3 guest characters. Even though Smash 4 had more than that, they had a ton of guest characters. A lot of those guest characters were DLC. The only 3 guest characters that came with the game were Sonic, Mega Man, and Pac-Man, and Sonic was already in Brawl. So only 2 guest characters were newcomers. I think they should do the same, where they try to keep those 3, Sonic, Mega Man, and Pac-Man, and then include maybe 1 or 2 more guest characters. I think that's what they should do. So now we should talk about straight up guest characters. So of all the guest characters that could be possible, Shovel Knight just makes the most sense. A lot of people wanted him in Smash 4. Here's the thing. When it comes to DLC characters need to be characters that build and attract hype. Shovel Knight would build and attract hype here in America, but the problem is he would only build and attract hype for hardcore dedicated fans of indie games and video games in general. And not every fan of indie games, not everyone who plays indie games has played Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight is also a pretty difficult game. So not everyone will like Shovel Knight because the difficulty will keep them out of it. But Shovel Knight and Nintendo have a good history together because Shovel Knight was originally released on Wii U and 3DS. And then when the Switch came out, the most updated edition of Shovel Knight, Treasure Trove, that came with every version of Shovel Knight, was released on the Switch, I think, day 1. So Shovel Knight has shown Nintendo so much love. It would be nice if Nintendo showed Shovel Knight some love back. However, DLC for Shovel Knight for Smash 4 would not build that much hype compared to other DLC characters. From what I can understand, I don't think Shovel Knight's even that popular in Japan. But his popularity in the West, whereas North America and Europe, is definitely there. He definitely has earned a spot, I think. However, should he be in Smash? Yes. Not as DLC, but as another character. Because people won't be mad about that. When Shulk was announced, I was like, okay. I wasn't mad. I was just like, well, that's a thing. He's in the game. But I wasn't mad, though. Okay? That's the thing. If the Japanese see Shovel Knight in the game, they'll say, oh, yeah, he's the guy that Americans like. No one will be mad, because he'll just be another inclusion in the game. So I think Shovel Knight is a perfect choice. I think his moveset is already perfect and diverse. He has so many different moves. He also has a down stab attack just like Link, with the difference being that his could be a bounce attack. You could also make most of his A-based attacks all shovel swings, with his special attacks being all of his various items that he uses Castlevania style in Shovel Knight. I think it's just the fit is so perfect. He's already so well made for Smash. And a part of that amiibo love for Nintendo, he has an amiibo. There's a Shovel Knight amiibo. He's gotta be in this game, guys. He is perfect as a third-party guest character. I'm telling you. And of all the indie game characters, if Nintendo wanted to put in an indie game character to show that Nintendo really loves indies, Shovel Knight is one of the most legendary indie games to date. And with all the love it's shown Nintendo, everything points to including Shovel Knight. It's such a damn good idea. Please, please put Shovel Knight in the game. That would make me ecstatic. And I think all the people who aren't Shovel Knight fans, people who really don't even care about Shovel Knight at all, they would see everyone else crowding around Shovel Knight, thinking we really want to see Shovel Knight. And when it would finally be announced, I think a lot of their jaws would drop just along all of ours. I think they would say, you know what? That's fucking cool. That's badass. Because they really wanted Shovel Knight. And that means just seeing anyone's dreams come true fills you with a good feeling. So I think Shovel Knight makes the most sense. Now, right under Shovel Knight, I'm going to mention another indie game. An indie game that got really popular, and it was sort of crazy how quickly it took off and became such a huge success. This is a game that I've criticized a lot, but it's a game that I totally understand where the fan appreciation comes from, and that is Undertale. While I personally, Undertale is just not really my game. I played Lisa the Painful RPG right around that same time, and I thought it was such a superior game to Undertale. And even and a lot of people who've also said like, oh well, I'm a big Earthbound fan. Hi, yeah, I've beat Earthbound and I've beaten Mother 3. Yeah, I beat Mother 3. So, in fact, Mother 3 is one of my favorite JRPGs. So don't come talking to me about Earthbound like just because I don't like Undertale it means I don't like Earthbound. I love Earthbound, and I especially love Mother 3. But Undertale just didn't do it for me, and that's because I was coming at it the wrong way. Undertale is not the JRPG pseudo Earthbound sequel that everyone says it is. It has the same fighting system as Earthbound with a little bit of a shoot 'em up mixed in there, but that's not exactly what it is. Undertale, in all senses of the words, is a walking simulator visual novel style game with battles built in, which I think is a great approach once I realized what it really was. But for people trying to say it is a Earthbound style RPG, that's just not true. Because the visual novel and the walking simulator elements are far more prevalent in that game. Especially if you're going for a no-kill route, which if you're me, that's what you would do, because I've beaten Deus Ex without killing people in both Human Revolution and Mankind Divided. I've beat Metal Gear Solid 4 and 5 and 3 all without killing people. In fact, actually, when I rebeat 2, I don't think I killed anyone either. I think 1 was the only one where I couldn't avoid it, because I don't think they give you a tranquilizer gun in that game. But I try to avoid killing people in any game that gives me the option. And when I was trying to avoid killing people in that game, I realized how much not fun that game was. So, however, when I look at the characters from Undertale, when I look at what makes them unique and how they could potentially fight, first of all, I totally see why people like the game, because the humor and the style, the music, all of that stuff, as well as the plot, the story, and the multiple facets and layers to each character that you might not see unless you beat every single outcome. I understand the appreciation for Undertale, and I respect the hell out of it for doing what it did. So, does it deserve to be in Smash? Well, the Undertale fans definitely think so, and who am I to say that it doesn't deserve to be in Smash? Why not 2 indie games? If they're going to put in any 2 indie games, it should be Shovel Knight and Undertale. And this is coming from someone who's not the biggest Undertale fan, but just seeing the impact it has made on the community of gamers and the community of indie games, it just makes a ton of sense. So I would really love to see that. With possibly Meat Boy being in the game as well, but Meat Boy probably shouldn't be his own character. Super Meat Boy should probably be a character assist. And same with Bit Trip Runner, who was also very popular on Nintendo systems for a long time. Bit Trip Runner and Meat Boy should definitely be assists, and then Shovel Knight and other characters like from Undertale should be in the game. Now, if there's only going to be one possible Undertale character, to me, the most sense would probably be the human, but the human you never see fight. So it really probably should be Sans. And I didn't realize this till much later, but apparently Sans has some crazy abilities and powers, and he's one of the most mysterious characters in the entire game that you'll never understand unless you beat every single outcome. Because one particular outcome shows Sans in a different light that he's not shown off in any other light, making him a great possible character for Smash. And it would always be really cool to see any JRPG character, even though obviously Undertale was not made in Japan. It's always really cool to see characters from RPGs and turn-based RPGs in a combat fighting game where they're fully realized and you can actually see visuals for how they would fight. So I do think that Sans would probably make the most sense, so I would love Papyrus, and the combination of Sans and Papyrus would be amazing. Um, but it'll probably be just Sans if they do that, or if not the human. Um, that would be it. And I as long if Undertale's in the game in any capacity at all, whether it be only a map, whether it be only the character assist, I would still shit my pants. So we'll have to see. But like I said, as far as indie games go, those are the two that would make the most sense. Next, as far as guest characters, I gotta say my boy Rayman. A lot of people went crazy over the leak idea that Rayman was going to be in the game, but the creator of the leak came out and said that he forged it. That's not actually what it's going to be like. He's not in the game. So, and Rayman still not in the game. Rayman had assist trophies in Smash 4. So to me, if he was going to be in the game, he wouldn't have been DLC. He would have just already been in the game. However, at the same time, I don't know if Rayman is at that same iconic status as a lot of the other characters, like Sonic, Mega Man, and Pac-Man. I don't think Rayman is up there. However, Rayman has had a lot of good luck lately with Rayman. What's it called? Rayman Origins and then Rayman Legends. Those games are quite popular, and also the Raving Rabbids were spawned from the Rayman franchise. So, not to mention, there's Mario plus Rabbids as this crazy turn-based strategy RPG. But maybe the Rabbids would show up as character assists. I think that's a very big possibility. And if they're going to put in any character, I think everyone would boycott the game if Rabbids were introduced, and they would just literally play Smash 4 and Melee and call it a day. But instead, I think we're gonna get, if there's gonna be any possible character from the Ubisoft, it would be Rayman, not the Rabbids, but Rayman. His moveset would it's not entirely there, but it could easily be made to work. So yes, I would love to see Rayman in the game. As far as third party characters go, right under Rayman, I would have to say the protagonist from Dark Souls. I think that's kind of a joke. I don't think he will actually be in the game, but he does have the amiibo, and Nintendo is making a big fuss over that character. However, I don't think that's necessarily. I don't think it necessarily means anything. Really, I don't. So, yeah. Also, Chibi Robo. Will Chibi Robo be in the game? Maybe. So it is weird nowadays. It is hard to consider who should be a third-party character in the game. To me, it should be someone. It should be someone where the franchise has at least touched a Nintendo console at one point. Which is why, even though Cloud was not. Final Fantasy VII debuted on PlayStation 1, Cloud is at least a part of a franchise that got a big start on Nintendo. They chose Cloud because he's the most popular Final Fantasy character. If they didn't choose Cloud, they would have chose Cecil, which is weird because Final Fantasy VI is their game that's included on the Super Nintendo Classic, not Final Fantasy IV. Because they only could include one Final Fantasy, I guess, and they chose 6 over 4. I think 6 is the best starting point for Final Fantasy. It's the first one I played, but they wouldn't choose Terra. There's just no way, because Terra as a character isn't as popular as Cecil is. Cecil is incredibly popular. So, do I want to see a character like Cecil or Terra in the game? Yeah, but it's unlikely because of Cloud. But and I don't think Cloud's gonna get cut. Honestly, I really don't. Um, I would actually be. I feel like he has more of a chance of being cut than Pac-Man, Mega Man, and Sonic, but I don't. I just don't think it's happening. Honestly, I think he's. I think people would be kind of disappointed to not see some of those characters. In fact, I think Bayonetta will also be in the game. People kind of think she'll be cut too, but I don't see why she should be cut. She might be heavily altered, but I don't see why she should be cut. Same with Cloud. They could give Cloud a new move too to get rid of his limit charging move, but I don't see why he should be cut. You know. As far as that, as far as guest characters go, sadly, that's the funny thing, is that to me, the most ideal guest character would be an indie game character, because a lot of other game characters nowadays don't have as much personality as old school characters. So let's now talk about unlikely characters. Now, these are all going to be guest characters because I've already kind of gone over every Nintendo character I can even think of. So these are guest characters that I think have zero chance. First, right off the bat, let's talk about Snake. Metal Gear Solid is one of my favorite franchises of all time. Whether it be games, movies, TV shows, books, whatever, Metal Gear Solid is one of my favorites of all genres. It is so damn good. I love all 5 of the Solid games. I have played the original 2 games, thanks to Metal Gear Solid 3, because they were included on Metal Gear Solid 3. And I really like Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. The only game I haven't played is Metal Gear Survive, and that's because #fuck Konami. But the reason why I don't think Snake will ever come back is for that same sentiment of #fuck Konami. You see, the reason why Snake was in Brawl was because Sakurai and Kojima actually have a bit of a friendship. In fact, if you want to know why the character Otacon is named HAL, it is not just a reference to 2001: A Space Odyssey, but it's also a reference to HAL Laboratory, the studio that is helmed by Masahiro Sakurai. Well, yes, I don't know if he exactly helms it, but he is one of the original people who worked on Kirby, and he is the long-term director of the Super Smash Bros. Franchise. So, and of course, Kid Icarus. So basically, HAL Laboratories is also in reference to him. So, there's a bit of a friendship there, which is why it was possible for Snake to be introduced into Smash Bros. It was a huge, mind-blowing experience. For me, when I saw Sonic, I was ecstatic because that meant the floodgates are open, the rules for Smash have changed. We don't just get nothing but Nintendo characters. If there's going to be any character that's not a first-party Nintendo character, it's got to be Sonic. Because that rivalry of Mario versus Sonic needs to be introduced in this game. We need to have Mario be able to fight Sonic, and we can finally do it. Then I was thinking, as far as floodgates being opened, characters like Mega Man would probably be my second best choice. And then probably Cloud. But the thing is that I wouldn't say Cloud. I would probably say someone like Cecil or Terra. And the reason why, or even possibly Bartz, but the reason why is because at least Sonic is on a lot of Nintendo platforms. At least Mega Man is on a ton of Nintendo platforms. Mega Man spent most of his career on Nintendo platforms. But Snake? Snake had a very, very bad port of Metal Gear 1 on the NES. That did not hold up to the original Metal Gear 1. Then Metal Gear Solid 1 was recreated on the GameCube with more modernized graphics and with a lot of elements from Metal Gear Solid 2 implemented. Of course, no version of Metal Gear Solid 2 or 3 or 4 or even 5 have any plans on being on any Nintendo console. So that's the weird thing, right? Is that there wasn't really that many Metal Gear games featured on Nintendo consoles. Yes, there was one, and Shadow Moses Island is featured in Smash Bros. Brawl as a playable map. But you know, that's it. So the fact that Snake was included and almost all of his costumes, his default costume, isn't even a reference to Metal Gear Solid One. It's not even based off that costume, nor is it based off his old school Metal Gear costume. It's actually referenced to his costume from Metal Gear Solid 2. And then his color schemes are all in reference to Metal Gear Solid 3. So, and then some of his moveset, his rocket is a reference to Metal Gear Solid 1. And you could say the grenade is possibly a reference to that too. But his up B, his recovery, where he's on the little flying drone, that is literally a reference to Metal Gear Solid 2. So a lot of that character has nothing to do with Nintendo. So that really opened up the floodgates. And to me, it was like they had the old school rivalry of Mario versus Sonic, Nintendo versus Sega, and then Brawl had the newer rivalry of Nintendo versus Sony in the same game. To me, I thought the only other character that would be as hype as Snake would be Cloud, and luckily they put Cloud in Smash 4, which was a great decision. That's something that I think they should have done for a long time, and when they finally did it, I was ecstatic. So, now, who should they include here? Bringing back Snake, there's no real point to that now, because, like I said, Masahiro Sakurai is a friend of Kojima. He's not a friend of Konami, he's a friend of Kojima. And that is why Snake was introduced in Brawl. If Snake's not a part of them anymore, Snake's working for Sony now, directly. So the idea of introducing Snake is just not only people be upset and not like it, but yeah. I mean, obviously they could make a trailer where he says "kept you waiting, huh?" But I think that time for Snake was over. I'm very, very glad he was able to be in Brawl because Hideo Kojima is someone I really admire, and Metal Gear Solid is a franchise that I adore. But it's over. That time is over. So I'm very grateful that Snake could be included in Brawl, but he's never going to be included in Smash again. At least I don't want him to be. There's also the idea of the character of Simon Belmont being included. The funny thing is on the NES Classic, there's 2 Castlevania games included, and on the SNES Classic, there's another Castlevania game included, and these are regarded as some of the best Castlevania games of all time. When you think of old school video games, like old school Nintendo, Super Nintendo, you think Konami. You think of Contra, Metal Gear, and Castlevania. The problem is that Konami is just not someone that we can really afford to negotiate with anymore. So should he be in these games? I just don't think it's a good idea. I don't think we should introduce Simon Belmont again. I think instead Simon Belmont would be... He's already kind of been replaced by another character named Shovel Knight, in my opinion. Because they both have the same idea of A attacks for weapons and B attacks for your special items. So, whereas Simon Belmont could have been cool in the past, I really don't want to have Nintendo associate much with Konami. And I don't think they want to associate with Konami that much either. So, yeah, I don't think adding in... And plus, not to mention, Simon Belmont is such an unpopular character nowadays. I think adding him in would just kind of make people scratch their heads. I think the heyday for Castlevania and Metal Gear Solid, I think that was during the time of Brawl. And I think it's already too late now. I think Konami's already screwed the pooch too much. Next, I would like to throw out the idea of Jin from Tekken or maybe even Kazuya from Tekken. The reason why this is my unlikely category is because on this new version of Smash, the name Bandai Namco doesn't seem to be associated with it anywhere. I cannot find any inkling, no pun intended, of information on the idea that Bandai Namco helped develop this one, which makes me think that there's no reason for another Bandai Namco character. Now, when it came to Pac Man, I think a lot of people thought that was an obvious guess. The only other solution I could come up with would be possibly Lloyd from the Tales games, sort of like how Cloud and Marth are from RPGs. So why not Lloyd from an RPG? In fact, the Tales game that Lloyd was first originated in was released on GameCube. So it made sense to me at the time, but also because I couldn't really understand how Pac-Man would work. Now that I see Pac-Man, Pac-Man is by far one of the best characters in the game. He's so interesting and unique and so much fun to play. So he should definitely stay. And he's also just an iconic video game character that fits all too well. So yeah, Pac-Man should definitely stay. However, because Namco Bandai isn't exactly working with Smash, I don't know if they're going to include another character from Namco Bandai. Now, there's like two characters from Sega, two characters from Capcom. Well, two characters from Sega if you count Bayonetta, which I do. Two characters from Capcom, thanks to Ryu. But when it comes to Bandai Namco, the other character is a Square Enix character. Now, you could say, well, Bandai Namco makes the new Dissidia game, but what game does Bandai Namco not make? So really, that's a Square Enix character. It has really nothing to do with Bandai Namco. So, yeah, who should be in from a Bandai Namco character? Well, there doesn't necessarily need to be another one. If they did put one in, I would definitely say Jin or Kazuya from Tekken. But again, it's not like it's that necessary for it to ever happen, and it's not even that likely. So I really don't think we'll see another character like that, especially if Ryu ends up being cut. I think Ryu should stay. I think Ryu is a very, very iconic video game character, and I think he actually fits in Smash really, really well. And his unique character gimmick is really cool. So I think Ryu should definitely stay in Smash. Whether Mega Man does or not, I think Ryu should stay. So I want Jin from Tekken to have like a Ryu versus Jin moment. But if not, that's fine too. The last character I have written down, the 20th character I think, is Banjo and Kazooie. Now, this is my unlikely for a reason. I know a lot of people, someone from Xbox, who I can't remember if it was the director of Xbox, it was a big wig in Microsoft. When they were doing the Smash ballots, a lot of people were saying Banjo-Kazooie, and he made a statement about it saying he would love to make that a reality. The problem is that would completely benefit Microsoft and not benefit Nintendo any way at all whatsoever. It would seriously be so against Nintendo's interests to show a platformer character in Smash Bros. That's on a different console who will never have console games on the Switch. It'll never happen. Unless Microsoft decides they don't want to make first-party hardware anymore and just want to make games for Nintendo and Sony, it will never happen. I'm sorry, it just won't. And it's not because Nintendo's bitter about not owning Rare anymore or whatever. It's simply because it's just so not beneficial to Nintendo at all whatsoever. Smash Bros. Is a game that advertises Nintendo. That's what it does. But it also advertises other games that are friends with Nintendo. So it makes sense to advertise Sonic and Final Fantasy and Bayonetta and stuff like that. It makes sense to advertise Mega Man and Street Fighter because those always have a place on Nintendo. Even if they have a place on other consoles, they always have a place on Nintendo. That is a win-win scenario for Nintendo. Banjo-Kazooie, unless they put a Banjo game on the Switch or put a Banjo game on a future Nintendo console, there is no point in putting Banjo-Kazooie in Smash. It's not just me saying it can't happen because Microsoft owns it. I'm saying it makes no sense for Nintendo to want to go that route. You know? I think that's why the bigwig from Microsoft said he would make that a reality. Nintendo wouldn't. Also, something to note here. Switch sales are almost outnumbering Xbox One sales, and the Switch has had far less time out compared to the Xbox One. If this happens, Xbox One is about to be the lowest selling console of the three. And that's, like I said, saying a lot considering the Switch this is the second year of the Switch. And the second year of Switch has just started. The Switch is 1 year old starting from March. So, yeah, like I said, it would definitely benefit Microsoft to include Banjo-Kazooie. It would not benefit Nintendo at all. So, yeah, there's no point in adding in Banjo-Kazooie, nor any Microsoft character, nor any PlayStation character. That's why Snake was such a crazy thing. And you could say, well, the floodgates are open, but that's not true. There was still plenty of opportunity to include Metal Gear on any Nintendo system. The time was never really right, though. Probably thanks to the Wii. Metal Gear Solid 3 was eventually ported to the 3DS. But that's about it. I would say now, more than ever, I would rather see a spin-off Metal Gear Solid game like a Peace Walker style game on the Switch, which would be more powerful than the PSP by a landslide, but even more powerful than the PlayStation Vita, which also hasn't seen a Metal Gear Solid spin-off. I think the time is over. I think that Metal Gear is just done, and that's why I think that including Snake in Brawl wasn't necessarily that much of a bad idea. However, did it backfire on Nintendo? Not necessarily, because I don't think it really helped Metal Gear Solid either. I think Konami has sealed their own fate with that one. But as far as Banjo-Kazooie going, also a lot of people said after Cloud was announced that Banjo-Kazooie had more of a chance than ever. That's really just not true. I know there's not that many Final Fantasy games on Nintendo consoles, but there are Square Enix games on Nintendo consoles all the time. And that's because Nintendo and Square Enix do have a good relationship. Square Enix would completely avoid the Vita and even avoid the PSP in a lot of times and say, hey, our handheld games are going to be on Nintendo. That's just what happened. Yes, there's like a few PSP games here and there, and Dissidia's on PSP, but they showed Nintendo just as much love, if not more, when it came to handhelds. Just not on the console market. So it made a ton of sense to include a Final Fantasy character. Even if it was a character who never appeared on a Nintendo system, it doesn't really matter because Cloud's not going to appear in any new game. So advertising Cloud doesn't matter. It's about advertising Final Fantasy. That's what matters. I think putting in Noctis would be really stupid. That would be a little too much because that would be representing a game that's actually currently out. And the only way to buy that game, if you like Noctis, would be to straight up buy a PS4, Xbox One, or PC. If Final Fantasy 15 never comes to the Switch, then don't put Noctis in the game. If you're going to put Noctis in the game, then announce Final Fantasy 15 for the Switch. That's all I can say about that. Should I even mention Goku and Shrek? Well, I guess I just did. But that's all I have to say about that. As far as any other character, it's like my computer desktop background. It's on random. It just shuffles random pictures, and this is like funny artwork of Silent Hill 2. Well, guess there's not going to be any Silent Hill characters either, because it's also Konami. As far as any other guest characters or any other Nintendo characters, like I said, it comes hard to try to pinpoint which characters should really be in the game. If I had to choose for 3 newcomer characters, if they're only going to put in 3 characters, which would make the most sense if this is a 4.5 game, I would say Inkling, which we already know is confirmed, Springman, and Shovel Knight. If I had to go up to 8 characters, 8 new characters, which could be for a 4.5 game or a 5, I would say Springman, Inkling, a new version of Link that's based off Breath of the Wild. That's 3. Pyra / Mira, which I'm counting as 1 character, from Xenoblade 2. That's 4 characters. Then I would say Decidueye, who is the newest grass starter from Pokemon. That would be 5 characters. Ooh, this is getting challenging. Then I would say Shovel Knight, Rayman, which is 6 and 7. And that's the funny thing is, I'm having a hard time with 8. So then I would probably say maybe Waluigi or Scizor at that point. But the reality is... Oh, wait. I forgot. I'm not even counting Ice Climbers and Wolf. Well, you can cut Waluigi and put in Ice Climbers. If I had to choose 12 characters, I would obviously go with those 8. So we'll have to say Waluigi and Ice Climbers, making that a total of 9. Then I would say Wolf, making that 10. Then, like I said, this is where it's getting a little tricky. Not to mention, I already named, I think, 2 Pokemon. Oh no, did I only name Decidueye? I didn't name Scizor yet. I'm going to try to avoid those. Man, it definitely gets hard here. Man, oh man. And that's the thing. Some of these characters might be a big surprise. Some of these characters might jump the shark. This might be the Smash game that jumped the shark as far as characters go. I don't think Smash 4 did it. I think almost every character in Smash 4 completely deserves its place. Even Lucina, I think, completely deserves that place. You might say, Robin, Lucina need to be cut. Bullshit. You didn't play Fire Emblem. If you played Fire Emblem, then you should not say that. And if you didn't play Fire Emblem, then you have no right to talk about if a character from Fire Emblem should be cut or not. Okay? All the characters have totally earned their rightful place. Maybe this is because I play a lot of the same games as Sakurai, apparently. But I think every character in that game, Smash 4, earned their place. Even Shulk and Rosalina, who I don't particularly like that much. I think even they earned their spots. Rosalina being one of the only characters where I start to feel like, okay, Palutena also, and Dark Pit definitely is just a straight up clone of Pit. At least the other clone characters are a little bit unique. Dark Pit is straight up Pit. There's really no difference. Except for his final smash, which most people don't even play with items on it anyway. So, yeah, it is tough to say who will be included. We might see something crazy like a anime character, you know? We might see something crazy like that, considering that anime characters were in Mario Maker as special cross-promotional stunts. You know, we might see something crazy in this new Smash, but I don't think they're going to pull Soul Calibur and whip out Star Wars or any other popular media that's not from a video game. But like I said, we're getting close to that shark jumping territory, which is why I think I got to 11 characters for if I had to choose 12, and that's why I would say my 12th character would probably have to be a Sonic character like Tails. But again, once those floodgates are open and we're including more Sonic characters, I think that's where we get to this dangerous place where Smash is now full of third-party characters that have nothing to do with Nintendo. So it might not be the best idea to do that. So we'll have to see. Did I not list Chibi Robo? Fuck it. Put Chibi Robo in the fucking game. Who fucking cares? Just fucking put in Chibi Robo.